whatever.
I mean, I got
Hey Frank, how you doing?
good. How are you today?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us. We got Frank Venipal with us today, CPA, business guru, all about the numbers from MBE CPA. So thanks for joining us, Frank. And I know this topic was one of your favorites, or one that you kind of picked out of profit maximization and efficient operations. So when we dive into that, especially in the audiology sphere, what comes to your mind while you're reviewing a P&L or you're working with these business owners?
Well, the big thing is, with profitability, it's so fast for me to see something, but
Yeah,
some of the
yeah, I
things
get
that they work on is it just kind of gets to the core of why they want to grow, and so profitability to me, I think for most practice owners, we want to start with a question that you usually ask people when they're starting coaching is, what's your process here that you want to do? Are you trying to grow or are you trying to maximize profits? And it's not that their profitability is something separate from whether you want to grow or you want to maximize profit. But if you're focusing on rapid growth and you're trying to add locations, trying to add providers, generally you should expect a short-term reduction in your profits. So it's more about expectations, right? And so knowing that it's like, hey man, my profits are falling away, but it's like I'm in this huge rapid growth mode. You just got to know of what you're trying to accomplish. Um, Something I'd like to tangent on just really quick as we talk about profitability. I think that sometimes practice owners have this feeling, and I just kind of get this as I talk to practice owners, that this goal of trying to be profitable makes them somewhat feel selfish or greedy or some kind of, like they have this guilt complex about the fact that they're trying to make money at this. And really, what I want to talk about with that is really we should shift our paradigm a little bit from this feeling of guilt of just trying to focus on what we'll call the goal of the almighty dollar, and really just talk about how it's really a necessity to ensure the future of your practice, right? I mean, we were be the switch of this mindset to just focusing on profitability really just kind of helps us build cash for our war chest to fight against the stuff that's coming at us in the future, whether OTC actually amounts to something. But what we all facing is wage inflation, right? If we haven't had any of our staff come at us and say, "Hey, I want some more money," you're in a very unique position. So whether it's wage inflation, employee benefits, creeping up, whether you offer health insurance or things of that nature, uh, future pressure for us to drop prices, increase cost of goods sold, or just the technology costs of stuff to be able to do marketing automation and Graphly and everything that we need to do, really you need to future proof your practice by focusing on profitability. And so that's why it's so important. And we just got to get out of that weird mindset of like, well, I just don't want to, I'm doing okay. I don't really have to raise prices, and really think about, you need to do this. This is your career, your business, and you have to make sure it succeeds in the future.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think everybody has to take out a pen and pencil and paper and write that down. Is focusing on profit and the fact that you are a business owner, not just an audiologist or a hearing specialist, does future proof your business. Another way that I've said it in the marketing world is whoever can spend the most to acquire a new patient wins the game, right? And so I go back 13 years in my journey, right? I was single, I had no family, I had no responsibility. I was able to dump every single penny back into growth and domination because I wasn't sucking out all of this profit. And so, depending on what your goals are and how your goals align with what you want for your future, what stage of life you're in, what legacy you want to leave behind it, it's very, very fundamental. And I think that's what happens when you put Frank and I on a webinar. Is you're talking to two business owners, you're talking to two people that understand and focus on the data and the numbers, not this emotional connection to patient. And the best way that I said it at Harvard last month at the Harvard Club, is if you agree that the purpose of your hearing healthcare practice is to treat a patient, that's the purpose, that's why you are an audiologist or a hearing specialist, that's great. But now there's a business behind that purpose. And the business behind that purpose must have profit, must have cash flow, must have sound functions of business so that you can pay for those things Frank mentioned, like payroll, health insurance. My health insurance for my team is doubling this year, right? So somebody on my team has a medication that's high plus inflation. The benefit that we provide for health insurance to our team is doubling. And so if I don't have increases in my cost of treatment, my what I'm charging patients, if I don't maximize profit, that's going to kick my butt as an owner. So I agree 100%, Frank. I just wanted to share with everybody, yes, you can do both. You can be a great audiologist with a higher sense of purpose to change lives and give back to the community, but you also have to take care of number one, and you are number one.
Right. You aren't going to be able to, yeah, that's the stages, right? You're not going to be the plateaus. You're not going to be able to continue to service patients if you're out of business or you can't pay your staff or you can't, so.
Frank, I want to ask you real quick. So the reason I put the plateaus up there, and for those that haven't seen them, as I've gone through my 13-year journey, as I've helped other practice owners go through this journey, I think the focus is, Frank, is that most entrepreneurs, most business owners leave their job. So on the left-hand side of the screen here is a job, right? You worked for a hospital, the VA, you worked for somebody else, and you didn't like something about it. You wanted more freedom, you wanted more autonomy, there was something about it. And so you started your own practice, most likely. And when you're in that, like you're in survival mode, you're in doing the job mode, you're not even thinking about owning a business, you're thinking about owning a job. You're stuck in this way. And so I think of it with these business owners as moving through these plateaus, and you have your own, angle coming at it. And so when in the journey do you notice people making that shift?
I really think that one of the biggest shifts is that, we'll say, the what to how. It's the when you start owning your business, and then really, I don't know. It's always, there's those levels, right? I mean, everybody can say, well, the next one's the most important, the next one's the most important, but what happens, I feel like, in that change in this, where we're saying from what to how, is when you stop just running crazy, running wild, and just trying to do more, and start focusing on processes and procedures and perfecting your sales funnel and starting to do things that really you're just trying. It just becomes like quality of life, right? I mean, when you're in the why, like as you said, you own a job, and then it's like, how do I get bigger? And then you just kind of like keep pouring gas on it, but it's like you reach a maximum yourself, and you just start finding, how do I need to be more efficient, right? I mean, I'm spending dollars on marketing, I'm doing this stuff. How do I improve and become more effective in how I run my company? And that's when you start to focus on that. Well, what could I be doing better? How could I, and that's when they start looking for coaching, and they start looking for, how do I do this a little better? How do I become a better business owner? And I think that's when they start looking at it in a different mindset.
Yeah, I know you've seen this across multiple niches that you work with, Frank, because we've had a conversation about even the restaurant business and how like focusing on appetizers or beers or desserts adds to the revenue per ticket or the revenue per guest, right? So like this applies to every niche. We might be talking specifically about audiology today. And I go back to most of the people entering Aud Experts or are working through these plateaus specifically might have, in their mind, 5 different ways that they make money, right? There's the cash pay patient, there's the third party patient, there's the insurance patient, and then there's ancillary services like wax removal or hearing test revenue. So like when you talk about profit maximization in your own journey and having the audiology practices with Laura, like where does your CPA mind go first when it talks about profit maximization?
If I had 30 seconds in the way, this isn't where I think you're wanting me to take this, but in the way that I would look at it, if you said you have 30 seconds, you have an elevator ride to convince somebody what they need to do inside of an audiology practice to maximize profits or drive the most to the bottom line, a 30-second speech begins and ends with sales. Sales cures all. We the audiology field lives in a world that has a remarkable gross profit, meaning what you sell the product for compared to what your input costs are. A lot of businesses might look and say, well, I got to figure out how to reduce costs and go through all this stuff to try to reduce costs. okay, you have an insurance bill, a liability coverage for your building and for your, employees and whatever. But you could go work with your insurance agent and beat them up and try to figure out how to reduce that cost. Well, even if you get the cost down by $2,000 a year, well, you're going and doing and spending all this effort trying to work on all these little vendors to nickel and dime and say, oh, I saved $1,000 on that. I mean, one treatment start brings so much more to that. So if I have that longer amount of time to work with somebody, it's a lot of it's about maximizing profits. There's a lot of stuff we can do, but it's perfecting the sales funnel and perfecting your staff, the providers, and everybody to get them more effective and efficient in how they go through that sales cycle. And you talked about restaurants or different industries. That's the same thing for them. If they're just saying, okay, if my sales cycle is somebody walks into the restaurant, sits down and eats and leaves, how can I maximize my efficiency and my dollars of sales I can get out of that customer? We talked about apps. We talk about sit around a while and drink. We talk about, the average ticket price. How can I make it appealing to buy something more expensive? It's a little bit of that inside the audiology world. But if I broke that down into things that are important for people to look at, right? I mean, they're going to look at stuff such as, there's people that I work with that really haven't done much for price increases over the last few years. It's like in this high inflationary period, if there's one time in the history of your 13-year journey that you could raise prices, it was the last 2 or 3 years. It would be shocking. I mean, if I went into your practice 4 years ago and I got a set of hearing aids, and then I come back again 4 years from now, and you're still charging me basically the same price, that's more of a shock than if I raise prices 10, 15% over those 4 years. I mean, good grief, they'd be like, you're the one place that I didn't have a price increase. I mean, they're expecting it.
I love it. So if we can pause that for just 2 seconds, I want to kind of go just a little bit step backwards and give a very tangible number. Like, yes, we need to increase the sales. We need to increase the pricing. I'm trying to go back, 13 years in my practice and probably to the beginning with you of, is this extra? This is Jared's exercise. I don't do this with, people every day. You probably do it a lot more, but like there's revenue streams, right? So like I always talk about revenue per chair hour or revenue per provider hour or revenue. I want to break this down and I do it with my own kids, like my kids are like, well, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, well, it doesn't make sense for you to do that because you earn more than that per hour. And so can we get this number down to when we talk about sales, right? And this goes for our clients in Australia, South Africa, Canada, I mean, all across the country, there's different revenues and profits per hour, right? Sure. Is that a fair statement?
100%.
So do we all understand what our time is worth and how much we should be making per hour? And how do we delegate and delete away from that? So in my practice, if I were to take third parties, I might make for a third party patient that I have to see for a total of 3 hours, I might end up making $150 per hour. If I do wax removal, I might be able to do 4 wax removals per hour at $25. Don't quote me on the numbers. And if I do a cash pay patient and I'm going to see them for their follow-ups and $8,000 divided by 4 hours, I'm making $2,000 an hour, right? So when you're looking at revenue, maximizing revenue coming in, but you're going to look at this number and say, how much revenue per chair hour am I making? And then also take it one step further into profit. Am I on the right path, the wrong path? Like, what do you think about this formula that I talk about?
100%. In a sense of how I dumb down this conversation for keep it simple, stupid, right? If for most customers is clients that I work with, rather, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a gas station, whether it's anybody, I just try to say, if I am your customer and I'm walking into your store, your place of business, and I'm going to give you $1,000, maybe when you have hearing aids, you have to change that. $10,000. If I'm giving you $10,000, how do you want me to spend that money? What's your most profitable thing? And so just kind of like, if I'm going to a restaurant and say like, if I got $100 in my pocket and you want me to buy something, what do you want me to buy to help maximize profit? What's the fastest thing I can eat? What's the most profit margin you have? All those things. And really, ultimately, this boils down to profit margin, right? The two biggest the two biggest costs that I have as a provider or as a practice is I have labor costs and I have the cost of the product going into it, the hearing aid, we'll say. And so if I'm looking at that and say, okay, what do I make the most money at? What Jared's pointing out here clearly, in my opinion, is uh, it's directing all of your marketing focus and all of your referrals and all of your VIP programs and everything to get to true treatment starts or hearing aid sales. And whether and it's not it's really tough, right? If I'm a small practice, if I'm in the I own a job mode in our plateaus, there's a place for people to have third party sales.
Yeah.
But it's just like, how do I ensure my family is going to get food on the table for the next 3 years while I'm starting my practice and building it? I just got to make sure there's steady money coming in every month, whatever. But then there's a time to switch away from those and make a shift and say, okay, now I need to increase profits. I need to slowly wean those guys off and focus all my marketing, all my stuff on doing treatment starts where, I can get that $8,000 or $2,000 an hour.
And I think you hit on a good point for those that are on this call. Like, I didn't do this overnight, right? I didn't flip the switch from no demos or no third parties or no insurance to only cash pay overnight. So we're not sitting here suggesting that you switch it all tomorrow. I would suggest that if you don't have an advisor in your practice or on your team that can help you look at these numbers. If you want to bring them to Jared and we have our coaching call, absolutely fine. If you have a CPA or don't have a CPA and you need to work with Frank at MBE CPAs, get in touch with him. I can get you his email. It's fvinipal@mbe.cpa. But you need to know the data. Data drives decisions, right? We say that all the time. And you should know that while you take third party, because you're starting out, because you need the cash, because it does pay the bills, that there is in your future at some point, time is limited. The number of hours you work is limited. And so when you start filling your schedule and you're consistently full, you might say, okay, I don't want to work more hours to earn more money. I want to earn more revenue per hour. Right. And that's when you have to start deciding on which service you're going to spend your time and energy on, which you're going to delegate, which you're going to delete. So it's going to be your journey.
And more important in that is how this ties back into our plateaus, right? Probably how I would word the discussion we had earlier about what's important about that transition is it's when people stop working in the business and start working on the business. In basic terms, right? And so how do I find enough time to be able to work on the business? Because otherwise people think, well, I got to hire another provider, or I got to add a tech, or I got to do something. Well, those things all cost money. But if you could just switch the way your business is set up and say, I'm going to do less third parties that eat up a bunch of time for the amount of dollars I have, and try to switch to have more cash pay or whatever, start selling hearing aids, and that focus, I can get the same amount of dollars and reduce the number of clinic hours I have or patient hours that I have. It should free up enough time for you to start working on the clinic without having to pay another $75,000 to an audiologist or whatever that number might be. And so it kind of all ties together of where you can really see your company launch is to start working on the practice instead of working in it. And the way to do that might be a shift in what products or what you're trying to sell.
Sure. And I think that the number here, I agree 100%. It's going to be a transition, and it depends with, consultation with your CPA, with your bookkeeper, with your coach to say, look, I want to make X number of dollars profit, or I want to work X number. Expectations is how Frank said it earlier. I want to have, a certain work-life balance. I want to have a certain profit margin. And I think that's really, really hard to go full circle, Frank, for an audiologist, especially, or a professional services person to say, I want to make X number of dollars per hour. I want to have X% profit. And I always joke that audiology is one of the lowest compensated professional services. And I joke that plumbers charge me more for a house call than my doctor, my audiologist is charging, right? So like, if you think that you charge too much, or $8,000 is too much for treatment, or you can't raise prices because of inflation and economic changes, realize when you break it down per hour, you are like underpaying yourself by 60% compared to an orthodontist or compared to a dentist. And so you have to start understanding what other allied health professionals, other doctors, other conditions are charging for the treatment of their thing, so that you understand how you fit. And then you also have to understand that, like, I love the clean and check conversation, because there's a lot of practices where the provider, the audiologist, is doing a clean and check. And if you make $0 on a clean and check, but you pay the doctor $50 an hour, you're losing $50 an hour every time you do that clean and check, or you do 4 clean and checks. And so I can't stress enough that you can work smarter, not harder. You can work less hours and be more profitable. And then you have the time to work on your business instead of in your business. And now you start moving through those private practice plateaus. Now you start building a bigger legacy. Now you start hiring more people. Now you start paying your staff better, and you move through that. So when we get down to the crux of it, Frank, how do we increase profit? Is there, I typed my first one, you mentioned it earlier, increase price because of inflation, because of economics. Increase your margin, increase your price. Is there another way to increase profit?
What I would say is it's, if we had more time, but, so to try to make this succinct is, we talk about a shift away from it, making sure you're doing things, you're selling something that has the most amount of dollars per hour, right? So how do I do that? What I see the most, even if everybody's a different spot in that journey, but I see a lot of people that come in and work with me. They might say, well, I've already kind of gotten rid of third party pretty much, or I'm on the way out on that. I'm basically just doing this, but I'm still struggling. I don't have enough cash. How do I do this? And I think you're going to tell me, Frank, that I need to go and spend more money on marketing and try to market to get more people. And what I want to make sure that, as we start working on the business instead of in the business, one of the biggest recommendations that I could do is tell these business owners to get really deep in an understanding of their processes, meaning in their marketing, and really to know that there's a ton of ways that you can do things inside of marketing that don't cost a whole bunch of money. I mean, whether that's, having a symposium, yes, it costs money, but not as much as traditional marketing, having, working on building a referral network, having VIP process, getting out there and showing yourself as a true tested professional in the industry, getting reviews, working on your upgrade list, working on your tested not treated list. I mean, there's all kinds of things that aren't expensive that you can go get leads, get treatment starts without really spending a bunch of money. But then moreover, even if you have the cash and you're willing to go do that and spend money on marketing, how many times, I mean, I talk all the time with Laura about that sales funnel, right? The dreaded sales funnel talk, where you have a perfect sales funnel where there's no holes in it, whatever, and all the qualified leads become a treatment start. Well, most of us feel like our sales funnel is more like a pasta strainer where there's holes all over the place and everything just runs out. So I feel like a lot of practices are losing so many things, whether it's a missed phone call or on return calls, people not getting into the sales funnel, people getting into the wrong sales funnels, falling out of the sides. I mean, there's just all these kind of breakdowns. And I just see that in ours, where it's like we're spending so much time focusing on marketing, which is like we're spending enough money on marketing. We just got to fix the problem to make sure that all of our qualified leads actually get to raise their hand and then somebody talks to them. And then, of course, the next step after that, sorry to interrupt, is then what the training, right? I mean, whether it's a Reese, whether it's a Terry, whether you're working with Morgan to make sure you have the right people on the bus to really say, I have training top to bottom to make sure everybody understands their role in that process, so that I can, get my conversion rates to the right spots, leads to opportunities to treatment starts. It's all about that process and procedure to maximize those dollars. That's the efficiencies is really a profitability talk.
I absolutely love it. You and I are 100% aligned on that top of funnel sales process. And I think that's what I've enjoyed about working with you, Frank, on, in Texas and Arizona and Northern Utah, on our finances, on our books, is most CPAs are bean counters, right? And they're always going to tell you don't hire the coach, don't hire the consultant, don't spend more money in marketing, don't reinvest in your business, maximize like, and that's my frustration every single time. But when I meet an entrepreneur owner like you, I don't know, you're probably up to 20 locations in CPA firms and 15 countries, I don't know. But I mean, your outlook as a CPA is not normal in what I've had experience with it as CPAs. And so to match your knowledge in, you know, public accounting and financial best practices, but also with your ability to say, I own a practice in audiology, I own a practice in financial services accounting, and you have this abundance mindset. So how to increase profit, I love it. I talk about it all day. I want to talk about the sales funnel, and every single business can maximize their profit by looking at the holes in the ship, if you will, where the money's leaking out. And then, yes, you can reduce expenses, but to your point, where do you reduce expenses in our business is cost of goods, which is very hard without scale. And so if you're a mom and pop or a small practice, you don't have the buying power. And so I hope you join us next year, because I think we've had some initial conversations about how we can help business owners reduce their cost of goods as part of the excellence in audiology community. And then payroll. But right now, every human being needs more money, needs a raise, needs to increase. So you can't like reduce payroll without like hamstringing your own business, right? Like your team wants to grow, your team wants to earn more money. And so I don't think you can cut back there. And you definitely can't cut back in marketing, because that's what gets you your new business and your new leads. So when you talk, and I have a great example from Laura, we ran some television commercials as part of the EIA network that you guys were founding members of. I think we had over 65 leads on requesting a book. And I texted her last night and I said, Laura, before next week, I need some data. How many of those leads turned into anything? And she didn't have the answer, like most business owners, right? Because she's busy with patient care and running day to day. But we don't know what happened to those 60 plus leads. And the difference between profit and unprofit is, well, what if 10 of those started treatment? That could have been $80,000 in revenue and very high profit. Or it could be 0 of 60 and nobody knows where the lead went, where the lead is being nurtured, where the lead is in the sales funnel. And now it was just a wasted expense. And to Frank's point, that is where we can move mountains. And luckily in our profession, it's $8,000 a treatment, not $1 for a Snickers bar, right? So one extra treatment, one more of those 60 people starting treatment is huge. So if you don't have a great understanding of your process or your sales funnel, you have to come to Mastermind with good questions. You have to come to our marketing calls and ask those questions and be the squeaky wheel until you truly, truly understand your own treatment process, your own sales funnel, and you focus on what you can control. You can't control the competitor. You can't control OTC. You can't control the government. What you can control is, are you maximizing what you have within your own business right now and what your team is focused on? And then you mentioned, Frank, pockets of profitability, that upgrade list, those lead lists, those people that have a spouse who could benefit from treatment, the VIP and referral program. Those are ways where you can easily focus on profitability and not be spending more money in marketing.
Yep, 100%. You know, in everything, to summarize, the pen and pencil moments are, you know, don't feel guilty about profits. Yeah. Then we're talking about making sure you're selling the right things, make sure that the product mix, if you will, of what you're selling is important. I mean, there's small things. I mean, even just inside of what you're selling, even if we said, hey, I'm just doing hearing aid sales, there's more profit margin in selling high-end technology than there is in low-end technology. You know, the whole being a medical practice and treating people and treating them with the right product, your job is not to just move product into whatever. It's recommend the best technology for that person. Don't make their money problem your money problem. Your job as a provider is to recommend the best product for their loss and try to help them the most. I mean, there's just this mind shift that it's like, Keith talks, Dr. Darrow talks about it, you talk about it. It's so anyway, selling the right product, increasing profits, fixing your sales funds, getting good processes. That's the takeaways.
Yeah, and I mean that data is very, very important. So if you're not at a minimum quarterly having that conversation with your coach, with your CPA, if you're not having a financial meeting every quarter, reach out to Frank and have another business owner, another mentor, another person in your relationship that understands not only audiology but numbers and accounting, and can help you stay focused on making sure your goals, your legacy, and your business is achieving what you want for your family and your future. And I think that if you ask those questions, and if you come to masterminds, if you come to our monthly coaching calls, if you learn one nugget from this webinar, it's okay to be profitable. Profit allows you to support your community, support your church or synagogue, support your family, support your staff, and really support your patients. Because if you're not making enough money to hold more events and more education and more books and more give back to your patients, your business will dry up over time, and you'll be hamstrung by a lack of cash flow or a lack of profit. So I absolutely love the topic, Frank. I know you and I could talk for days or hours. What I would love to see anybody on this call do is twofold: come to Fix It Friday and come to a mastermind with a money question, with a profitability question, because then we can take this conversation further. If you don't have somebody, if your CPA has looked you in the eye and just told you what your P&L was and never had a conversation about your revenue per hour, never had a conversation about inflation, never had a conversation about what you're going to do next, I would tell you you need a different CPA. I would tell you to reach out to Frank and say you need somebody that aligns with what you're trying to accomplish out of your business. And for many people, that's not managing low revenue and managing low profit. For many of you, I know your goal is more clinics. I know your goal is more profit. I know your goal is private school for your kids. I know you want a retirement, and I know you want a future and a legacy of some sort. So stop working with people who aren't helping you achieve that, and reach out to a team that can. So Frank, I appreciate you being here. Is there anything else we can leave them with?
Nope, I think this has been great. I think we hit all the big topics we wanted to talk about, and I'm really excited for the future. I think we can change lives. We can change this industry. We can help other practices help more people and truly help all these people that have treatable hearing loss.
Awesome, Frank.
It's great.
Thanks for being here. We'll hopefully see you in March at the mastermind, and we'll dive as deep as anybody wants to go and nerd out on the numbers. So thanks
All
again.
right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy your
Have a good
day.
one.